there was a rat. He came running out where I didn't put chicken wire over the pallet. Okay, so here's my compost bin. I had made it with pallets and a little bit of chicken wire and some staples. Staples and a staple gun. And then of course, gloves. Okay guys, so here's my compost bin that I made with 3 pallets that I got for free. I also got these slatted pieces of wood for free from an old farm that was selling, and they just had these shelves that I pulled apart with some with a mallet and a hammer. And then this plywood top I just got for free as well. I don't remember where I got that from, but there's plenty of resources around if you just look on Facebook Marketplace. So here in my compost bin, I put in some chicken wire on the bottom half, the first 2 feet. So now I'm just going to complete the compost bin covered in chicken wire. So this is a tricky part about chicken wire here, is just unraveling it from its roll. It's actually really sharp around the edges, so you got to be careful not to poke yourself, which I did multiple times. As you can see, it got caught on my shirt there. So just take your time with this part. It helps to have a staple gun handy so that you can kind of use that as your placeholder. So here I am just stapling it all around the pallets. This would be a lot easier to do without any compost in your bin already, but I was really eager to start my compost just because I wanted to give my garden some fresh homemade compost. So I already started it, but that's okay. I'm just stepping right on top of it with some cardboard. I'm not harming any worms. They're all on the bottom, so don't worry, no worms were harmed in the making of this video. So as you can see, I'm lining up the chicken wire over the gaps of the pallets so that the rats and raccoons and whatnot can't get into the bin, so that when it's closed at night and nobody's around, they're a little bit less free to just kind of roam in and out of there. With compost bins, you want to be careful not to leave your fresh kitchen scraps, such as that watermelon that you see right behind me, laying on top of the pile. You want to bury it at least 6 inches deep with some debris, some wood chips, some leaves, some kind of brown decaying matter, just to kind of cover up the smell from any pests or rodents that are hungry. Another thing to consider when you're creating your compost bin is to have a cover. So that plywood that I took off earlier, that is my cover for now. It's not the most sealed protection, but it's going to help to keep bigger pests out, such as raccoons, and it'll also help to keep your moisture levels at a consistent level so that the rain doesn't get in. So this last pallet that I'm putting the staples on with the chicken wire, or the chicken wire on with the staples, I should say, I actually ran out of staples. So I had lined it up, it was ready to go, and then I just had to refill my staple gun. So here I am refilling it with some heavy duty 1/2-inch staples. These are great. You can pick these up at your local hardware store. And here's my little staple gun. I love it because it's air pressure, mechanical. There's no electricity involved. There's no battery charging involved. So it's really great if you just want to have something on hand for these kinds of little home projects. These corners were a little tricky to get the chicken wire on just because I haven't stabilized the pallets with any kind of rebar stakes into the ground, so they kind of shift around a lot if you're pushing onto the pallets. So I'm going to have to go in with some kind of heavy duty rebar down into the gaps there and just try to make it a little bit more sturdy so that when I do stuff like this, or when I'm turning the compost heap, I don't have to worry about the pallets shifting around. Okay, and here I am almost done putting the chicken wire all over the pallets. And here we are. So now I just have to go back in with my staple gun and make sure that any little slack is taut. So I'm just going in with a staple gun and securing all the little loose areas. And then with my mallet, as you can see, I am just hammering in those staples so they're more secure into the wood. Okay, and now I'm taking the opportunity to turn my compost. Since I don't do it every day, I typically try to do it at least once or twice a week. So here is that time of the week for me to turn the compost to make sure that all my little microorganisms are getting the chance to get into the middle of the pile and do their job. With composting, you want to make sure that you have the majority of your heap be brown material, so old grass clippings, cardboard, brown paper bags, any kind of like twigs or branches, stuff like that. And then the rest of it can be kitchen scraps, but you definitely don't want it to be the majority of kitchen scraps just because that will rot and it will get moldy and it will attract a lot of rodents. Speaking of rodents, this is one of the reasons why I put in that slatted system in the front. I didn't want an open design where rodents could just come in and out as they please. Eventually I'm going to have to change the top of this compost bin and put in some rebar stakes into the pallets because it is really, really hard to open and close the cover, as you could see. It warps as the rain comes, and then I have to turn it over so that way it seals a little bit more tightly up against the edges of the pallet and the slats. But other than that, it works. Most of the materials that I used were free, if not very, very cheap. All you need is a little bit of time and energy and the willpower to turn your compost at least once a week, and you will have your own fresh compost for your own garden.